Hello number ones, welcome back to my channel. This is the Metatron speaking. Today we've got a really interesting video, I believe. We're going to talk about collecting armors. We will be discussing about many different kinds of armor that you could buy, collect and having produced for you, ranging from medieval European mail armor, full plate armor, 15th century, 14th century, going all the way to Japanese samurai armor and even Roman reenactment. So keep watching. So, lots of things to say, but before that, a really quick joke. Why, you might ask? Just because. What do you call a deer with no eyes? No idea. So, beginning with armor, the first question should be, what do you want your armor for? And secondly, what your budget is. So what do you need your armor for? Are you going to do historical reenactment? Are you going to participate into a LARP event? Or are you just a collector who wants to have really good looking armor in his home, on display? Now, of course, if you are going to joust or you're going to fight with your armor, then you do need to make sure that what you're buying is real armor. But on the topic of costume armor, I still strongly suggest you not to get into costume armor. Now, I myself have been collecting weapons and armors for a very long time now, and I do own costume armor as well as real armor. Now the thing is that there is a huge difference. Now of course the first difference will be price. So if you don't have a big budget, the first temptation you could get is to buy one of these Indian replicas that are very, very cheap costume armors, just because perhaps they look good, perhaps you don't know how to distinguish a real armor from a costume armor, and so you might think you might end up choosing to buy one of these. Now, costume armor is not going to give you a real feel of an armor. It's most likely not going to fit you well. It's not going to protect you properly. But of course you might argue, well, if I want to buy a real harness like 15th century armor, that's going to cost me a lot of money if I have to have a real smith actually produce the armor for me. Well, you see, we all face this problem. I myself, 15th century full plate armor would be my favorite kind of armor ever, possibly Northern Italian style, if you will. But I can't afford it right now, so what am I going to do? Well, the first suggestion I would give you if you are into European reenactment is go for a 10th century, 11th century knight, because that way you can just buy, first of all, civilian clothing, because that would be the first thing you should buy anyways. Then you could get a full mail armor. Mail armor that you could still use as a component of your 15th or 14th century set. Okay, so you don't have to consider buying a full plate armor like 15th century, 14th century armor altogether. I myself am planning on getting a 15th century plate armor, Italian plate armor for myself, created by an armorer, but of course that's going to take me a lot of time. Not a problem, I'm not in a rush. It's better to wait and get real good quality stuff which will last longer than just wanting everything immediately and then ending up spending a lot more money because you will have to buy everything all over again. Now moving on to 11th and 10th century armor for the knight, I suggest of course to go for riveted mail armor, because if you want to be historically accurate butted armor, there are no archaeological findings of butted mail armor in Europe. Now please I'd like to remind you that butted armor is when the rings are not actually closed, they're just forced into the position together, but they will open if someone tries to pierce them. Riveted mail armor instead has little rivets, meaning nails that close the rings, and this is how European mail armor actually was, an even Roman mail armor. Now, if you want to know more in detail how mail armor worked and all the different kinds that you could get, then you could click the link here for an actual dedicated video that I have on my channel. But in this video, suffice to say, riveted armor is the best option because it is 10 times stronger and more resistive than butted mail armor, and it will be more historically accurate. Also, I would not go for galvanized if I were you. I don't think galvanized mail armor is accepted by reenactment societies, and honestly, it doesn't look good because, to recognize that, a natural finish will look darker than galvanized. When you see a mail armor which has the same color of a post, a light post, then that's most likely galvanized. Now galvanized of course has some advantages, meaning that you don't have to worry about rust, but it's not historically accurate and it does not look historically accurate. Now, to complete your 11th century or perhaps even 12th century knight, you can go for a mail coif or coif and a great helm. Now, I know some people are going to say that it's not historically accurate to wear a great helm without a cervelier or some other forms of metal skulls or smaller helmets underneath it, but that's not actually true. We don't really know that. We know that the closer we get to the 13th or 14th century, then the most probable it is that the great helm was not a standalone helmet, but it was a helmet, a complementary helmet worn over smaller caps or metal cervelier. That is true. But as far as the 11th century, 12th century great helmet is, we don't have any evidence for that, and most likely it could have been a standalone helmet at the time. As far as your hand protection is concerned, well, you should consider that most likely your hand protection will be mail, meaning that as time passes, the mail arm will extend going all the way covering the actual hand. So it will be one piece. As a matter of fact, we do see lots of statues and representation of people actually uncuffing it, and they will look like mittens. For mail armor, Battle Merchant is a good site if you are on a budget, but a better option will always be to have mail armor tailored for you, and you can get some tailored mail armors for reasonable prices. For example, you can check out custom chainmail. Yeah, that's the name of the site, Chainmail. What can you do? Custom Chainmail is a good one. There are many others, of course. I'll see if I can leave some links in the description after I make this video. But that's a good one because they can actually tailor the mail for you. And when I say tailor, I don't only mean tailoring it at the waist, which is already very important because and not only the waist, of course, but the shoulders and everything, because that's important because if it fits well, it will weigh less. But also because they can tailor the arms. Now this is very important because a lot of these pre-made off-the-shelf mail that you can find including in all these sites, including actually Battle Merchant, although Battle Merchant is kind of the less worse. It's an okay site for mail because it has riveted mail, but what they don't do, just like all these other cheap mails, is that they don't tailor the arm. Now it's very important to have the arms tailored in mail armor, because if not, then you will have these baggy looking cheap mails that have all this excess weight and excess rings. You should have the mail tailoring and tapering basically all the way to the wrist, so you don't have excess mail here. Now I don't think I was talking about this with Ian Laspina, and he was telling me that on that side they do this, but they don't actually give you a gusset under the armpit, which is some extra mail that will fold and will give you some extra range of motion for your arms. So again, if you do want properly made mail, then the price will go up dramatically, and that's the same for elbow pockets you can get, again, to extend your ability to move your arms. But that again depends on your budget. I would still recommend Custom Chainmail as a good site to get at least tailored mail and at least tapered arms. That's already a reasonable riveted mail armor. Moving on to plate armor. Plate armor, just forget off-the-shelf sites. Just don't buy that stuff because you will regret it. You will be spending your money on stuff that doesn't fit, that doesn't work well. You should have plate armor always tailored on your body. So if you know an armor, and I will leave again some links on Facebook pages of armorers who could make these armors for you in the description. I will update the description every once in a while, so come back and have a look if you are looking to find armorers and smiths who can produce plate armor, quality plate armor for you. But it should be tailored for you. They should take all your body measurements, not just sending the measurements. You need to go and see the armorer and have him possibly take all the measurements of your body for the armor to function. If you want plate armor, unfortunately, it's going to be expensive. But talking about the metal, as far as the metal is concerned, now most knights in the 15th century, of course, they would probably have hardened steel, but you can also get softer steels, and it's still going to be historically accurate, even all the way down to mild steel. To help you out a little bit with the terminology here, when we talk about carbon steel, we need to differentiate between low carbon steel, medium carbon steel, and high carbon steel. And you might have heard the term mild steel. Well, mild steel and low carbon steel are synonymous. We are talking about anything with below the percentage of 0.3% of carbonium in the steel we're talking about. So anything below that is soft steel, is low carbon steel, is mild steel, and it cannot be heat treated. This is the key point. So 0.3% carbonium is the cutoff for heat treatment, meaning that procedure that will make steel become a lot harder, tougher and stronger. Now anything from 0.3% onward is going to be medium carbon steel, all the way up to high carbon steel. Now, high carbon steel is not a good idea for armor because it will result, heat treating high carbon steel will result in a very hard steel, which will result again in an armor being too brittle. And so perhaps, and again don't quote me on this, but perhaps I'd say that 0.6% carbonium is the sort of maximum percentage of carbonium in order to make armor that is not too brittle. Anything above that could be good for swords, because you can have like really good high carbon steel swords that are still very effective, but not really armor. Now this doesn't mean that it never really happened in history. It did, and we do have historical examples of armor, high carbon steel armor, which though ended up being too hard. I mean, you can see that even today. So most likely the reason why they made that is because medieval smiths probably didn't really have an exact idea on the amount of carbonium they had in their blooms, which probably meant that whatever steel that was, they just ended up heat treating it anyways, even if it was high carbon steel, and that resulted in too brittle armor. So medium carbon steel would still be the best option, and we have many possibilities. C45, C50 are excellent options for medium carbon steel that can be heat treated. Some people who could not afford it just got mild steel. People who could afford it had it hardened and heat treated. It's the same thing as today, really. So your choice really depends on what you're going to do with the armor. If it's something you're just going to wear, take pictures and make videos, and then just display, then I would say just go for mild steel. You could even go for pure iron. There are historical findings of full helmets that were pure iron, really. But of course, a softer steel means that if you hit it, it's going to dent. Okay, it's going to be dented. So if that's something that bothers you, go for heat treated. Even if you go as low as 0.3%, just the minimum to a quantity of carbonium for heat treatment, that's still fine. It won't dent as easily. But if you go for soft steel, then it's going to happen. And mind you, I have dented a cuirass, have I pronounced that right, with a wooden waster sword. Okay, so mild steel is that soft. Now, I do know that there are quite a few armorers that like experimenting with lots of different kinds of steel. I've seen people making excellent helmets with, for example, boron alloy. There are lots of possibilities for experimentation. You can talk about that with the armorer. Now, for samurai armor, it's a completely different kettle of fish, because samurai armor is made of iron, so you don't actually have to worry about steel. It will be lacquered, so you don't have to worry about rust. That is, maintenance is very important with full plate armor, European plate armor, even mail armor. So samurai armor, no problem with that. But will samurai armor dent? Yes, it will, against impact, against arrows, against swords, against everything you attack it with. But is it actually going to protect you? Yes, it is, because the way samurai armor is created, it is actually sort of good for the armor to bend, because it will absorb the impact, so it will protect you. So again, if you always want it to be perfect and no problems, no scratches, nothing, don't fight with it. But again, if you want to fight with it and you don't care about a little dent everywhere, somewhere, and that sort of thing, then yeah, samurai armor will protect you and it will work. Now, Roman reenactment is probably the easiest one, because of course, again, even with Roman armor, the best option will be to have it perfectly tailored to you. That's going to cost you quite a bit of money, but not an incredible amount of money. Of course, if you're talking about segmentata, if you're talking about hamata, the mail armor, then yeah, you can just get a riveted mail, half riveted, half solid. That's already quite historically accurate. And yeah, you can find lots. So considering that the slaves are short, you don't even have to worry too much about tapering them, because basically you don't have any. So yeah, that's going to be cheaper. Battle Merchant is going to give you some real good Roman armor, and it's going to be quite cheap. For segmentata, again, are we talking about steel? Well, the only kind of steel that you shouldn't really wear if you want to be historically accurate is stainless. But again, stainless gives you a good advantage as far as maintenance is concerned. So I can't really say don't wear it. I shouldn't advise people to wear stainless, but I myself owns a stainless armor among the other things that I have, because it's just so nice not to having to worry about rust. But that's because I use it for certain things, and I wear it under the rain and all that, and I don't really have time to take care of it as much as I would like to. But then you should definitely go for a iron armor, or even mild steel in my opinion, because in the Roman blooms we don't really know how much carbon there was, but definitely there was a certain amount, so probably what they called iron was what we today classify as mild steel. Just my opinion. Okay, well, for this first episode I think we've got quite a lot of information. If you have any questions, please ask them down below. And what kind of armor are you going to buy? Would you like to go for a historical Roman reenactment, early Middle Ages, high Middle Ages? Are you going for 15th century, 16th century, or are you going for Japanese reenactment? Please let me know in the comments below. Thank you very much for watching, and remember, the Metatron has spread its wings.